she was so big in my early days of my life and really in my recovery, actually, with her 5 stages of grief. And I think she's a genius.
Maybe you don't have a full-on identity crisis when something like this happens.
I used up hope, and I do have hope, but for me, hope is more futuristic.
Well, and the only constant in life is change.
Exactly.
Life is always changing. What's happening right now in this moment, this moment is gone. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Life Happens podcast. This week, we have a really exciting conversation, as always, Mom, that I think many of us are going through. I mean, we all go through this, but it's been up for a lot of us. It's been up for a lot of our listeners. And so we wanted to tackle it today. We've been talking a lot about life. I mean, this show is called Life Happens. And so life has been happening to a lot of us. And, in our description of the show, we talk about the twists and turns of life, the ups and downs of life. And so today I really wanted to dive into how do we handle and manage life transitions? How do we identify ourselves when life is in the in-between, and what it looks like to work through those in-between moments of life?
I like that you said that. How do we identify ourselves? That's powerful.
Well,
and it's really interesting. I agree. Life is happening, feels like on a rapid pace right now, and there are a lot of transitions happening for everyone probably, but even some really, really deep ones for many people. But I like that. I like that we're covering this topic. I like that so many people have written into us wanting us to talk about, what are some of our tips or tools or strategies or practices for navigating and managing these big life changes and transitions.
One of the biggest, I think, difficulties that we face is the concept of our identity. How do we identify ourselves? How do we label ourselves? And oftentimes career, family, society, culture, religion, those external parts of our lives that make up huge parts of our lives often go into how we identify ourselves. And so what happens when one of those things falls away or changes or morphs into something else? How we identify ourselves is shaken, and it can leave us feeling confused and uncertain. And we've talked a lot about self-worth and self-confidence, but it can really rattle how we feel about ourselves and how we view ourselves and if we feel like we're worthy. And so, life is we often think about the highlight reels of life, the achievements, the goals, the big moments, hitting those benchmarks that we all set out to achieve. But as we know, you and I talk about so often, life is also filled with those in-between moments of what we do when we're on our way to the goals, how we handle the changes, how we handle the setbacks or the rejections or the difficulties. And so I think it'll be really fun to talk about the in-between moments, like where it's not as maybe appealing to think about what is in between, like the highs and the lows or the highs and the highs, but how do we place our presence there, and what does being present in those moments actually look like?
I love that, because often I think when we're going from a high to a lower, going through a transition, let's just say
a roller coaster of life.
Yeah, especially since if you're going through one of the 5 major transitions, it really does rattle us. I mean, it shakes us to our core, not only because we had our own ideas and thoughts about who we are and how we're labeling ourselves and who we think that we are and what we've desired to be in life, but society. I know I went through that. When I went through this recent divorce, I thought, I can't be divorced 2 times. It wasn't so much what did I think about it, which is what you brought me to really question myself. Mom, do you really care? No. It was
but you didn't even realize that you did care until it came up, which is why I think it's such an interesting thing in this conversation is you might not have had any realization that you harbored this kind of opinion or judgment or feeling, and a change or a transition or a pivot brings up those emotions. And so you mentioned, we found an article that talks about the 5 most common life changes or life transitions that tend to impact our stress and our mental health and
the biggest ones, not just most common, like the most dramatic, traumatic, or really big life changes. They've been talking about this for years.
Yeah. I mean,
I know.
Yeah. So, the first one would be a death of a loved one, which of course makes perfect sense. We've talked a lot about grief on the show and how, my dad dying in his sleep really changed so much. I mean, obviously for us, but certainly
Yeah.
grief and death has a huge impact on how we identify ourselves. Divorce and separation, like you mentioned, that's a huge one. Totally changes so much of your life.
Well, it changes everything in regards to, even not only does it change your own personal stance in the household or in the way that you view your relationship, but what I really discovered more than anything, second time around being divorced, which I knew from the first time, but this was a little bit more dramatic, is it changes your whole community structure. It changes your whole essence, or if you
Belonging.
allow it, in your belonging and your whole navigating and moving through the world, moving through your community, moving through getting up in the morning, going to have coffee with someone that you used to have coffee with, but you don't anymore because that friend is no longer around. So it is a very dramatic thing. And now I see why, divorce or separation is way up there in the charts of being one of the number two transitions that is most dramatic and can be very traumatic. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
Moving homes, moving communities, moving where you live, hugely impactful.
I think you're uprooting. I think all of these are uprooting what we know to be, constant, which I think for me, what I've really looked at the most during this transition time for me is the two things that I know to be true from my meditation practice and all of the traditions that I've read is that life is unpredictable, period.
Yeah.
There's no, well, it's predictable here. Life is unpredictable. And you can never really predict what any given moment, which your dad's death showed both of us, but also trusting the impermanence of life.
Well, and the only constant in life is change.
Exactly.
Life is always changing.
Yeah,
What's
exactly.
happening right now in this moment, like this moment is gone. What was 10 minutes ago is no longer. And how can you start to have acceptance that you can't rely on anything in the external world to give you that sense of stability or foundation when it's always changing?
And I just want to say, I bring up the idea of trusting the impermanence of life. Is that I like the word trust, because when you're going through something like this, it erodes all your trust for that moment. You're really trying to rebuild what you thought to be true, or what you thought to be trustworthy, or what you thought was going to last maybe, a lifetime. Yeah. So trusting the impermanence is really a big one for me.
Yeah, major illness or injury, of course, and that's huge too, because health is hugely important when you think about your everyday life, and when something happens or something changes, it changes everything.
I remember taking that for granted when I was younger, and I used to hear, grandparents or older people when I was younger say, your health is everything, your health is everything. And
Health is wealth.
yeah, right. Health is wealth used to be a slogan, or it may still be, I don't know. But yeah, health is everything. I used to think, well, yeah, it's important, but I really took it for granted when I was younger.
Well, this is a minor story, but when I lived in New York City, I lived alone, and this had never happened to me before. But one day I woke up and like I had it ended up being like a bulged disc in my lower back, and I could not walk. And living alone in a city where I walk everywhere and I rely on myself too. And this was kind of before you could really get like groceries delivered, and it was before I think we had more at our fingertips to make things work. But I felt super vulnerable and overwhelmed with how I was going to figure out my life when I didn't have the ability to get myself there, and thinking about who I needed to rely on or what I needed to do. So you just never know when aspects of your life can change, especially when it comes to your physical body.
It's the only constant, change.
Yeah. And then the last one that's mentioned here is job loss, which I think a lot of people are going through right now. There is so much uncertainty with employment and the job market, and just the way society and the world is. I think when I think about, growing up with you and that generation, it was just like, you had your job and you were in it until you hit retirement. That's kind of how it felt for most people. And I think the world around us now, where it's very fluid, and you can't rely on one thing to kind of get you to the finish line, so to speak. And so
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense to me that this would be something that would really impact
Oh, it's huge. And
many
you think,
layers of someone's life.
yeah, it's huge. You think of technology's changed everything. When I think about, yeah, the days that I, was younger and the things that I was doing, technology's changed everything. There's so much unpredictability and so much change and so much uncertainty. I think, the other word that's really key here today in this conversation is uncertainty. How can we manage the massive, unpredictable uncertainty of life? Uncertainty is everything. If we can kind of cultivate I won't go as far as to say friendship with it, but understand that it's going to visit our energy, and it's going to visit our lives more often than we might like, or more often than we might expect. Uncertainty is everything.
Yeah, and it's not meant to be a scary thing, like to make people feel on edge, like when is life going to hit or when is a change going to come up. And I think especially, and I know that we have talked about this in the past on other episodes, in regards to grief and loss, there's a whole concept of anticipatory grief that I know that I've had to really manage and work through, because when you have a death or a loss in your family, and in any regards, but from my experience, one where it was completely unexpected at a time. My dad died young, and it was just kind of happened without really any warning. And it did make me feel fearful or it gave me a very impactful realization at a young age that at any moment it could happen to anyone without warning. And it did give me a fear for a while that, okay, when was it going to happen to the next person? Especially because, again, not to be morbid or make this episode all about death, but a lot of our family died young. Your parents, your mom died young. My dad's parents died young. Then dad died young. So when you think about like your core of your family structure, a lot of them were gone,
Yeah.
in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah, that doesn't sound so good. We don't have longevity in our life.
No,
And
just saying,
I love it.
So when in that
Wait,
young age,
I was going to say something funny
I
is
know.
that we're going to break the cycle.
Yeah.
We're going to be the two
Gotta
that breaks
really-
that cycle in this family.
Health is wealth.
Yes.
But I just, for all of that to happen at such a young age,
Yeah.
it made me feel like,
a
whoa,
lot.
when is the next person going to hit? Like when am I going to need to get the funeral dress out? Which we had a joke. Like I had this funeral dress that I just wore all the time because we were always going to funerals. And that too, that anticipatory grief, going back to my whole point of this, was accepting and embracing the concept of change, the impermanence of life, and that there's always a possibility of something that could happen. I don't say this to make people feel afraid or to live in the anxiety of what's to come, but rather an invitation, I guess, to be more grounded in the present moment and to also go within and really cultivate that best friendship with yourself or that strong foundation from within, so that maybe when these things happen, they'll feel rattling and they'll feel like you're being shaken, but maybe you don't feel totally taken out. Maybe you don't have a full-on identity crisis when something like this happens. Maybe it just is a momentary thing, or maybe you handle it better than you thought that you would. And that's the whole point of this conversation for me, at least.
No, I love that. I think we can handle things better than we think. And what has helped me so much, because it's not just death, it's these 5 things and other things. There are other things on the list.
I was going to even say too, I was thinking about this because there's a stat that 50% of sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please, no, go ahead.
50% of individuals report experiencing an identity crisis during significant life changes.
Yeah.
And when I read that what came to me is like aging too is a thing that's been up for me, that I've noticed my own.
And you're turning what?
I am approaching 40,
joking. I'm
which is
Yes, it's a milestone.
milestone
It's a
in life.
milestone.
That makes me feel a lot of different feelings about it. But I've had to grapple with my own identity crisis about the fact that, leaving my decade of my 30s and entering 40s just feels like a significant close of one chapter and start of another. And I've had thoughts about what does this mean for me as far as like my identity? Do I have to change how I present myself as someone who will be in their 40s? Like even to from big details, of course, when we think about timelines in life, but to little details of like, do I have to dress differently if I'm in my 40s? Do I have to present my, those are all things that go through your mind. And that it gave me a bit of an identity crisis when I was thinking about it a couple nights ago.
I love that you're sharing this because I had no idea.
Well, it just happened.
And I think it's really important because I had no idea. Yes, we have identity crisis when we change ages, but I didn't really start to really understand that I was aging until I was 60. So it's very interesting to me, but I never thought about, what do I wear? But you're right. All of those questions do come up. And as you were saying that, I'm thinking, maybe I thought about that, but I didn't allow myself necessarily to feel it or engage it. And I think this is really important that you're bringing this up.
And I know we talked about this recently on another episode. One, with social media, you can really see what people say. And I've seen I know I said this in a past episode, not to read the comments, but I was reading comments once about someone who was wearing something and they're like, this person's 40 and they're wearing that. Don't they know that they shouldn't? So of course that feeds the mind of, wait, what is a 40-year-old supposed to wear?
Yeah.
Which whatever they want is the answer.
Yeah.
But it planted that seed of like, wait, what does
I didn't know that.
But also I do think when I think about growing up as a child and what I viewed someone who was 40 and how someone who was 40 dressed and acted, it just is different. I think fashion has changed.
It is. It's totally different.
Even just how we age has changed. I think we skew looking younger even at that age. And, even looking at, no disrespect to you.
Okay, here we go.
But looking at photos of you in
sure.
your 20s and 30s, like I just think sometimes I think you look younger now than you did back then. And society has changed. And so I say all of that just because it makes you think about things.
Well, I do think, I thank you for that compliment. I get that often from people because I think what is happening is if we look at aging gracefully, now we're into aging as a big transition, but
twist in topic.
But I think if we think about aging gracefully and really being in alignment with who you are and why you came here to this life, to live this most difficult life, I think the more that you can be in alignment with who you are, and as we're going to talk about today, be in this whole transition period every time some unpredictable, especially traumatic, dramatic life change happens, you're really calling upon that youth and that energy and that power that we have from the inside out. So I feel like I've had a lot of big life changes, like everybody else listening, I'm sure. But I feel like every time I've gone through one, I come out the other side braver, stronger, and more in alignment.
Yeah.
Like it's been a difficult journey, but then as I come out the other side, I'm stronger, wiser, and really happier. So it's pretty incredible how we can do that.
Well, it's almost like I just want to be 40 so I can rip the Band-Aid and not have the
No.
about
You don't wish your days away.
I'm kidding. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, I understand.
Because I know that to be true. You go through the transition and you come out of it. You're like, wait, this is amazing. Yes. Losing this one job gave me the space to look for something that I really love.
Like writing your next book, it's coming out. Or your first book, actually, not next book, first book coming out.
Yes. Or, going through a divorce can be an invitation to freedom, to self-reflection, introspection, new relationships. We've talked about a lot. It's not rejection, it's redirection. And transitions can often feel like rejections, especially when you think about jobs or relationships, friendships, or things like that. But I do really believe that, there are reasons and seasons for things in our lives. And sometimes things are not meant to last forever. And if a chapter closes, if something does end, it's not a reflection on who you are, obviously, the worthiness piece that we talk about so much on this show, but it's more of a how can we start to look at it? Okay, that served me for that chapter. What is this one going to look like? Hey friends, as much as I love the summer season, there's something I really love about that time in between summer and fall where I feel like I just have the space to get my life in order and to organize. Maybe you can relate, which is why I'm so happy and grateful to Wayfair for being my one-stop shop for absolutely everything from home to office to everything in between to get my space feeling organized, cozy, and super cute. We're so grateful to Wayfair for helping us redesign and decorate our new Life Happens studio. It's going to be so amazing and we can't wait to show you guys here on our YouTube channel. They helped us find items to decorate, to make it look inviting and cozy and everything in between. Plus, the delivery of all of these items was fast and hassle-free. Wayfair has everything that you need for your home and more, no matter your space and no matter your budget. Plus, every single item has free and fast delivery. What more could you need? So, get organized, refreshed, and back to your routine for way less. Head to Wayfair right now to check it all out and shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
You know, most of us have suffered, or many of us have suffered at least all of those possibly in some level of degree or some level of the spectrum of how it's happened. And I look at that and I think what I know has helped me the most are Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief. You know, and grief is not just death.
Yeah.
You know, we grieve all the time, but I don't think we give ourselves permission to grieve. Like it's
right. We had that episode a few months ago with Sarah Levy she talked about
Yes.
giving herself permission to cry and grieve during loss with her loss, in the fires. And
during
that's
loss,
a
yeah.
totally different kind of loss than
a death. But it's as dramatic and can be as traumatic. And so I don't think we give ourselves permission. So in going through this divorce, which is the latest transition that I've been in, and I'm out the other side already, but it's very interesting when I use these 5 stages of denial, of anger, of bargaining, of depression, and of acceptance. You know, she was so big in my early days of my life and really in my recovery, actually, with her 5 stages of grief. And I think she's a genius. And I feel like we don't talk about, we meaning collectively life, we don't talk about that book because I think it's a little bit of, I think the translation maybe is lost in the speaking about it because I don't view that book as a linear guideline. You do this and you do this and it's so rigid. I never viewed it like that because if we're really going to feel those stages, we are not necessarily going to feel them in that timeline. But I've always seen these as tools that help me feel. Like she gave permission to grieve, and she gave I feel for me. I'm always only speaking to my own experience. She gave me permission not only to feel my feelings about all these stages, which I feel like we've all been through some semblance of all of this our whole in our lifetime, but she also helped me feel like I'm not crazy. And crazy is a big word for me. Yeah. And so I would, denying that I wasn't getting divorced after 33 years.
Well, I think she identified the feelings that come up.
Yes.
So that you don't feel like your experience is unique to you.
Exactly. And
the identification.
That feeling is real. That it's a real feeling that you can deny something that's actually happening. If you feel kind of crazy though, right? With death.
With death, for sure.
With a loss, with anything, you're like, this can't possibly be happening to me. This isn't really happening. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and it's all going to be okay.
I mean, I did have a dream about Dad recently that was very real.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh, he's alive still. That's crazy. So denial can come in very bizarre ways.
So I love that. So I'd like to bring this back up just a little bit, just to use it in the context that this was a really good roadmap and not of certainty, because nothing is certain. Nothing. I mean, we used to think it was flat. Now we know it's round. I mean, it's very interesting when you think about something that people were very, very certain that this world was flat, and then all of a sudden now it's round. So I just like to look at this as a roadmap on, by having this, it not only does it give you permission to feel all these feelings, which is important. We've talked about feeling feelings a lot on all these episodes. It's helped me not feel crazy, like something is really the matter with me. But it's also okay to feel anxious and the feelings, but also okay to be vulnerable. Like it's okay to find those trustworthy friends, trustworthy daughter, and talk about it and say the crazy thing. Like I said, Michelle, I can't be divorced twice. Yeah. And you're like, what? Tell me, what? So I think those are the things that.
So can you briefly just mention the 5 stages?
Yes. Denial.
That's the first one.
Denial is the first one, where what is happening in the moment it's so traumatic and or dramatic that it doesn't register in your being that it could be true. Mm-hmm. And so there is a place, every big major trauma that I've been through, everyone has always I thought, this can't be true. So
even when because injury and illness is one, when you broke your knee, you're like, I did not break my kneecap.
No. And then when the doctor said it's not broken, it's fractured, and I thought, I knew it. No, that's a joke, but
denial.
It's true. Denial.
You don't want to accept a new reality so quickly. We're being forced to accept something in no time at all, and our brains and our beings have a really hard time being forced to do something like that.
And remember, in the context that I and Michelle and I are talking about this, it's not linear. It's not a timeline that we're going to follow and then we're going to be done. I'm done with denial and now I'm going into anger. You can sometimes flip back into denial because the anger is so strong.
I'm having dreams that dad's alive.
Exactly.
20 years later almost.
Exactly. And I think if people can take it that this is not literal, it's just, it's actually a very powerful movement of the feelings and of what happens inside of us when we come up against a transition like this that is so powerful and so life-shattering, really. So denial, we all know what that is. Anger. And
denial is the river in Egypt. Sorry.
No, and I think, and anger is...
You asked me for jokes
I did.
before we started. So.
I did. No, in anger, we all feel anger, but sometimes it's scary to feel anger. And especially with this divorce of mine, it wasn't that I didn't want it to happen.
Yeah.
I was ready for it to happen. So that's where it gets tricky, I think. And so if any of you are experiencing big life transitions like this, even if it's something you want to happen, I guess don't be thrown or don't beat yourself up or get even more angry because you're feeling angry.
Well,
it's like all those feelings.
I had a lot of anger when Dad died because of the unexpected nature of it and his lack of organization with his affairs and finances, and he had no will. He was not someone that planned for the future. And so me being his only living relative, the onus was on me to kind of sort everything out. And I was 21 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. And lots of other messiness that one day maybe we can talk about. But I had a lot of anger about that. And because of how things unfolded with Dad, he died unexpectedly. And then, of course, you tend to the affairs and finances and things like that, and things kind of escalated really quickly. I felt like I almost probably skipped some of these steps and went straight into anger because of everything that was happening and didn't really necessarily feel the sadness or the grief or the acceptance because of the circumstances that we were in. But I say all that to say, I had a lot of judgment about that too. I was like, I'm angry at this person that has passed. I'm angry that he put me in this situation. I'm angry that he didn't have better boundaries with people that weren't in his best interest. I'm angry that he didn't take better care of himself. I'm angry at all of these things. And then I felt, wait, my dad, who was one of my favorite people, passed away, and I'm supposed to be sad, and I am sad, but I was also angry. And so my point of saying that is, if you have anger in a situation of grief or loss, but even losing a job,
everything.
We had done a Q&A, asked people to send in questions, and someone asked about feeling judgment for themselves for the stress that they had had in their lives that they believed had influenced them into having a chronic illness, which I don't know their situation, but what I got from that person's question was they were kind of blaming themselves for their illness and had anger about it. And so it's like we have all of these situations that happen to us in life, whether it be illness, you moved a lot as a child. I'm sure that had its set of emotions as well, but you can be angry and not have judgment about it.
Well, I love this, Michelle, because it's in all of these 5 stages, but anger in particular, because I think what happens for me and my experience of feeling the anger and allowing myself and giving myself permission to feel the anger, what happens right after that is then guilt.
Right.
Like with your dad,
Yeah.
you're feeling
I had a
angry and
lot of
he's
guilt.
dead. So you're feeling guilty now. And then we start to feel shame. This is, oh my gosh, I don't want people to know who I am. This is so terrible. I must be the worst person on the planet that I'm feeling angry, that this happened. And so I think there's so much wrapped up in all of this in these big transition times that we have to be gentle and kind with ourselves, but we also have to be aware. And that's why I love this. It's giving us knowledge. I just love this so much. It's giving us the knowledge and really equipping us with the knowledge of griefs in all of these transition times in life, the terrain and how to navigate the terrain. To me, this is a roadmap. These 5 stages are a roadmap, but not necessarily we're going to go from A to B to C. I just want everybody to understand that. And I think for me with anger, I used to have a lot of difficulty admitting that I was angry or allowing myself to feel the anger.
I think a lot of women, especially from your generation and my generation, and maybe now too,
we're not allowed.
You don't ever want to be considered an angry woman. That's unbecoming
Not
or
allowed.
unattractive or unappealing.
Not
And
allowed.
I know I always was afraid of anger, that it was going to make me not seem like someone people wanted to be around.
And I think that's why bargaining, the third one is so.
Wait, bargaining is third?
Bargaining is third. We go from denial to anger. Now to bargaining is third because it makes sense that bargaining comes after anger. After we're done beating ourselves up, after we're done feeling guilty, after we're done feeling the anger or whatever with people, with God, with whatever it is that we feel caused all of this, the world, anyone, then we get into a state where we're kind of, I am again speaking from mine, where you kind of feel worn out a little bit. Oh, I'm kind of worn out. And now what could I do to change this? What could I actually do to change that your dad died? What could I actually do to change that I'm in a place of getting divorced and the papers are already filed? Like we get into a place of, I can bargain this away. And if you're a religious person, which she talks about a lot in the book, can I bargain with God? Would he change everything? Could it all be different if I just bargained? What am I willing to give up? Yes. If I could do one thing differently, I'll give up anything, or I'll do just whatever it is. Please tell me.
Yeah.
I will do it.
And I think that is a big piece too for a lot of us where, if you could make this go away, I'll be the best person I can be forever, or I'll never, not to go into drinking, but I think when I used to be someone who drank, I'll never do this again. If this problem can be eliminated, I will never do that again. And then again, you have the guilt when it does, which I think the bargaining piece is so interesting, and it really does set us up for even more grief,
shame,
and
failure,
heartache, and disappointment.
Because you think about, I keep saying failure because, we think that, failure is just a chance to learn, but we do feel like a failure. I have failed here. And so then we get like, it's time to give up. I'm not any good anyway. So it really, really, really erodes our self-worth, erodes our self-esteem. I'm not worthy. This is happening to me because I'm a bad person. I made one bad mistake, or I made one bad choice and took one not so great action. And now I brought all this on myself.
Would you say bargaining too is the place in this spectrum where you start to glorify or elevate the past?
Big time.
Like, especially I think of relationships or even loss or jobs, like, oh, I wanted to leave that job and now I got fired, but then, that really was the best job I ever had.
Yeah.
This is where those thoughts and emotions come up.
Big time. Exactly. We forget, we're in such a place of, and I think it's because the anger has worn us out a little bit, which is good. I'm not saying don't be angry. We need to be angry. This is just the great roadmap. The anger's worn us out a little bit, and now give me that. Give me my old life back. Give me whatever just happened back. I'm tired and I just want that back. This wasn't so bad.
Because you also know what to expect with it.
Yeah, we've lowered our expectations. We just want to be out of our suffering. If we think about everything that goes along with these life transitions, it's suffering. We definitely are suffering. And for me, this roadmap of these 5 stages haven't kept me from suffering. We're going to suffer. That's the way life is. But it has truly shortened my suffering period where I wasn't piling on to my own suffering. I wasn't making it worse.
You weren't adding to your own suffering.
Exactly. I was noticing, you know what? You're here, but wait a minute. I was remembering, it's like I talked about recognition a lot in the last episode. Wait a minute, Barbara, you're here getting divorced. But you remember you wanted the divorce. Remember all those reasons why this is the best thing that could happen right now. And I think it's so important to think about, I think it's so important to realize and recognize what's happening in bargaining, because then we go, if we can't quite look at the bargaining piece as what we're just describing right now, then we realize, it dawns on us that you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning, your dad's going to be sitting there at the breakfast table. Or I'm not going to wake up tomorrow morning and I'm suddenly not getting divorced. It dawns on us that this is real. I now have to deal.
There's no quick fix.
And I now have to deal. I now have to actually contemplate. It's something that we talked about before, Michelle, when we were looking at doing this episode. We have to contemplate the uncertainty of what's next and finding our grounding. Like finding our place. Oh my gosh, I now have to take this on. And we start to question, are we ready? Because don't forget, we've filled ourselves with shame and guilt and all that stuff in the bargaining and anger stages. We have chipped away at our self-esteem a little bit. And so sometimes a lot, but a little bit, probably at the least, for me, definitely. And I've thought, oh my gosh, now what? And I had a whole plan laid out before I even got divorced. I knew now what. I was looking forward to starting this life that I had planned. So I know it's like we have to lean on the discomfort even a little bit more. And this is the stage of depression. She called it depression.
Can I just take us into bargaining for one more second?
Mm-hmm. Go back. Oh yeah, go back to bargaining.
Yeah, go back to bargaining. I think too, what really impacts a lot of us in this bargaining stage is we often think that if we had done one thing different, yes, or if we had said, yes, one thing differently or acted in a different way, or if we could take something back or somehow change the past, yes, everything would be different. With grief, with loss, I felt this way a little bit with Dad. He had some health issues. He did not take good care of himself. And I know I've said this, even though it was completely unexpected that he died in his sleep, I had some weird instincts that he was going to pass. And I know we've told the story that you and I were going on our mother-daughter trip before I went back to college. And I remember the night before we left, I texted my dad and I was like, are you good? Are you sure it's okay that I go? Do you want me to stay? Is everything okay? And, he said, no, go, you're fine. And then the next day I texted him before we took off because that was my routine. And he didn't respond right away. And I was like, oh my gosh, something's wrong.
You said that to me.
I had that. I'm like, yeah, why didn't Dad respond? Because he always did. And then, of course, when we landed and got the news that had happened, in my mind, I'm like, I knew I shouldn't have gone. And not that me not have going would have kept him from passing away, but sometimes our minds make us think that, somehow it was our fault. And so I just wanted to highlight that in this bargaining phase, even with relationships, during some really difficult breakups in my past, I've thought, oh, if I didn't overreact to that one situation, that one time, maybe we wouldn't be breaking up and I wouldn't be feeling this way. Or maybe if I didn't have so many needs, or I was too needy, I was too high maintenance. Yeah. And I just say all of this to say, to be really gentle with yourself if you're in the bargaining phase, because it tends to land heavy on us that we caused this for ourselves. We're the one who did something wrong, and that if only we were better or smarter or not as difficult or not as too much, maybe this wouldn't be happening. And that's just not true. It's likely that all of these things would have still happened.
Well, we forget we're not the only one responsible.
I'm just saying we think we are, though. Our minds
That's my
trick
point.
us.
That's why we go to the depression stage.
So now take us to depression.
Well, I think that's you led us beautifully into this next stage, because this is what happens. We come to the realization, we think it's not a realization, but we think it is, like it's this epiphany, I'm the problem. I caused all of this. If I had only not done that one thing, I caused all of this. And even in the job, loss of a job, loss of moving, I caused all of this. If I had not done this, we wouldn't be moving. Whatever it is. So it's all of those big life transitions. So we get into that stage of the blame is so severe if we can't really say, wait a minute, and, kind of talk back to it.
We dig ourselves into a hole.
We really dig ourselves into a hole. And I'm sure that's why she called it the depression stage, especially in the death. The death is a huge one. It's all huge, but that's number one, especially in the death. And you lose all track of reality in that, wait, I'm not the only one responsible here. I'm certainly not responsible for other people. I wasn't responsible for my dad's health and all the things that you just said to us. But we lose all reality of that. And we think if we could just done that one thing. Mm-hmm. And it kind of does take us back to bargaining. Well, if I take that back, then can I fix it? So we're still in that phase of really beating ourselves up a lot. And then also bargaining kind of, could I really change this? Because we think we've got the power because we're the only ones handling all of this.
Yeah, we place the onus of sorting this out all on ourselves.
On ourselves. We think we are the only ones. And I think that's really a good place to recognize the extreme self-judgment, blame, criticism, giving ourselves the power that we have the power over, basically we have the power over life and death. We have the power over the world. We have the power over everyone.
How people act, how people behave.
And I think sometimes when I got into that phase, I even laughed, especially having to practice and all that. I kind of laughed. Do you really think, Barb, you have that kind of power? So, we stay in that phase for a while. And then
I think too, it is really interesting. I don't think I've ever quite gone through the stages of grief like this in a way where it really is clear to me in this moment that the peaks and valleys of it. And when you said that you start with denial and then go into anger and you kind of wear yourself out in the anger, that you get to the bargaining and you're in this worn out place with the bargaining, and you can see that then how emotionally taxing that is. It makes perfect sense to me that depression or, really feeling melancholy or whatever word that works for you, because depression is a clinical tool, clinical word. You might not be melancholy. You might not be diagnosed with depression, right, but you could be feeling dark and low for an extended period of time. That isn't necessarily how you generally are. So it's like Genius. You wear yourself out on this road.
You've used up all of your energy and all of your faculties of, who you really are in terms of, I got this, I understand this, I got this. It's all, you're on the mind and you got it. And all of a sudden now you're deep into the feelings, you're deep into the heart, and you've been beating yourself up, with this round and round. No, we're not filling up our cup at all. And this is a huge part of it. So people are asking us though all along the way. It's not like we're hibernating in a cave through all these 5 stages. People are asking us, are you okay? I'm good.
Yeah. What do you need?
I'm
Nothing.
Good. And then if you say you're not good, sometimes, well, you wanted this, didn't you? You wanted to get divorced. You should be happy. So it's very complicated. And that's why I'm so excited.
Or even with grief. It's been a year. What do you mean?
Exactly. No, you can't. There's no winning in a big life transition. There's no one on the planet that's not going to come to you, I believe, in every single one of these big life transitions, and even in little ones, that's not going to somewhere along the way say something that doesn't really make sense that you're feeling, but you're not willing to go there, or maybe you yourself don't want to go there, but maybe you don't want to go there with the person you say, I'm good. And then you leave there and say, I am not good. What is wrong with me? I should be good. There is definitely something wrong with me. I should be good. And so then moving into that, there's no timeline though. I have to keep saying that because this could take whatever. As I say often, it takes what it takes. So eventually you get to a phase of acceptance, which in my early days of studying with her and reading all this, I thought, oh, can't wait to get to that phase. And then I'm done.
Like
And
the
it doesn't,
rainbow or the pot of gold at the end of the
yeah,
rainbow.
you're like, oh, acceptance, because acceptance is such a huge word. It's like, oh my gosh, it's kind of the bow on the box of all the craziness. And so you get to acceptance, but you're not done. And acceptance doesn't mean that you're done or that you just got it all done and you're good to go and all of that. It's really a journey. And that's why I love this quote by Lao Tzu. He's one of my favorites as well. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Actually makes me a little emotional. I love his work so much, and I love this quote. So acceptance truly for me has been the single step. Okay, this is all real. This all happened, but that doesn't mean sometimes you might not go back to denial in a dream, or you might say, oh, but maybe I still have this one little door I could open that could change everything. But truly, when you feel like, okay, I got this, this is real, and maybe have a huge another cry or talk to a trusted friend, that you're like, I got to take a first step now. And so I love this, like it begins. So acceptance for me, this quote is the journey. Acceptance is the beginning of the journey into this next phase of life. So it's the first step.
Yeah. And acceptance really is that kind of presence to what is, of finding your power in this moment okay, this all has happened, and now where do I want to go? Or like you said, what is my next step? Or what am I being asked to do in this moment?
And I think too, with acceptance, why I love that word so much is that as you keep taking the one next single step and the one next single step, and you just keep staying present as you possibly can in every moment, you just keep trusting and having the faith that, okay, this is the journey and I got this. I've got this, whatever it is, because I already know life's unpredictable. So I'm ready for the next unpredictable thing because I built my courage, or I built my ability to be more brave through all of this whole long, long process. Then you really come to realize, and you start taking one step and one step and one step, like, I'm liking this.
Yeah.
That maybe not necessarily in a death. I don't want to use that word likingness.
But it starts to feel
but
not so painful.
Well, I think for death, for me, I've realized that I have a whole new, different relationship with my loved ones that have died. Right. And when I say liking it, I love, and like the relationship that I have with my mother right now. It was so, I love it. I love my relationship with her right now. So you're able to look at it. I know you can. So I love the acceptance phase, not that it's because I'm done. It's really the beginning. No. And you start to become a beginner every single day, and you really get the power of being in the present moment. Like every day is one next step.
Yeah.
What are you going to say? I love that. I love that smile.
You can, from the death piece, you can have, a new kind of relationship. And it's funny because lately if you see a bird or a moth, you'll be like, hey, Mickey, which was my dad's name. And it's just funny. You'll say that out loud.
I will.
And, it is a nice thing to have in a situation where you you do wish that person was here. It brings levity, and it's a new way of relating to that person. And it might seem silly if you're not, used to being someone who thinks that way, but it really does work.
Well, and it's drama free. Yeah. It's, my mother had such a difficult life. And I used to, sometimes in my prayers at night or in my meditations, I used to say, I hope that things are better for you in the next life, or whatever, finding some kind of peace. And so after working through all the trauma and all of the grief with her and all of the trauma as a child, and then coming to this place of, it's so beautiful. And I know that she's at peace now, and we have a relationship that's drama free. She's not elevated to saint like sometimes we do when people die. We think there was never anything wrong. I don't know what happened. But she's elevated to a place where she should be as a mother, a loving mother who did the very best that she could. And now she's here for me because I call upon her in times of stress sometimes, or in my meditations, or I can feel her presence. And it's fabulous because it can't be any other way. Yeah. It cannot be any other way. And we can't change what is. I think that too, this conversation, Michelle, is making me feel very much appreciative, acceptance and having appreciation for feeling these transition times, even though they are brutal. I mean, I don't want to make light of now that we're in acceptance.
Right.
It doesn't mean that we didn't suffer greatly, but we're not suffering now so much. And then little by little, we don't suffer a little bit more and a little bit more. But we also start to recognize how sacred and how precious not only that life is, but these in-between times. Because now, 2 years, August will be 2 years in the divorce, and I feel the most at peace and powerful, and I feel like I'm 40. I feel like we're both turning 40 next year. So it's very interesting how life is, and it's very interesting. And I feel strongly that if we can stay the course and not try to be anything other than who we are, and we not try to change what's happening and not try to deny ourselves the right, really, as a human being, to go through the phases that happen when we're presented with a traumatic, dramatic situation, and really just have all the, as you talk so much about, having all the loving and kindness and care for ourselves. We can come out the other side knowing that we handled it better. I feel like I handled it better even though I was a mess. I think that's the cool part about it. We can be a mess, but we still handled it better. So I just love this whole talk of transition and framework of the 5 stages, because it truly is I believe, a map for how we can live life and, really move our way through suffering and move our way through what is happening in the present moment to a place where we can be even more present once we're through it. Like, wow, I thought the worst 2 years ago, and look at me now. Right. Not dwelling there, but just really recognizing.
Right. I think what's cool about this conversation is really framing the transitions in life, going through a big life change through the lens of the stages of grief as like a roadmap, like you said, of how to process a lot of the common feelings that come up during these times, and letting the transition periods or the in-betweens, between one big thing and the next, allow you to connect with yourself and feel your feelings and process your feelings, and then, kind of, like you said, come out stronger. Or if not stronger in the sense of, wow, I'm like a whole new, better person after this, just more connected to yourself.
That's it. Stronger in who you are.
Right.
You're exactly right.
I think that that's a really neat way to frame something that can feel so overwhelming and daunting and excruciating at times, because that to me is like the silver lining of it. If I can go through something really painful, but then know that down the road I will have gained something from it, it can feel like it's not all done in vain.
I think I talked many episodes ago maybe about hope was always the foundation of my life as a child and forever. And I still, hope is a major part of my life, but more so is faith.
Yeah.
I've kind of transitioned more into, I used up hope, and I do have hope, but for me, hope is more futuristic.
Right. Out of the present.
Yeah, a little bit. And not to say I still have hope. I keep saying that because I don't want you to think that I don't have hope, but it's more future. So I focus more on faith. I have the faith that all is well, even though it isn't. Things around me might not be well, or going through this or going through that, or the world around us. And it's given me tremendous solace, really, and comfort, in that even in worldwide things or things that are totally out of my control, all will be well, or all is well in this moment. And if we can string one moment after the other, having the faith that all will be well for all human beings and for all the planet. So it's necessary. Mm-hmm. For me, I think it's necessary to live this life in the most amazing way possible, without going under. It's kind of like, I like this analogy, and I could close with this. I like this analogy of, so we're born and we get in this boat, and we go off the shore into this
you get
boat
into a
of
boat
life.
as a baby?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're born and we're like in this boat with our families and stuff. Like we're born and then we go into this boat and we're in this boat and we're off the shore, so you can't see the shore anymore. And so life, we're growing older, or we're getting all these things that are happening in life, and we're still doing our thing, and we're, taking the next row in the boat, or taking the next lap in the mile of the waves or whatever it is. We've got all these waves coming, and sometimes the waves might come and it may feel like we're going to drown. Like we get to a place sometimes, I don't know if I can go on anymore. Or I don't know if I can deal with these feelings. But we do. We use the roadmap, we take the path, and we're still in our boat. We still can't see the other shore, but we're still in our boat, and now we've come to accept, how our new life is, and we're even stronger, and now we're even paddling even a little faster, but we still can't see the other shore. And I believe that we really don't see the other shore till we're done. So I think I take out the like that anxiety of I got to get to where I'm supposed to go. I got to get to the other shore. I got to get there. I got to get there. Oh, now I got to figure it out because now at 33 years or down the drain or whatever we might say to ourselves. Yeah. And I think I'm not going to see the other shore till I'm finished in this iteration of my life. So I okay.
And it's not about the destination anyways.
No, but I like the analogy of
No,
that,
it's great. But
yeah, it's
you
a journey.
don't know where you're going.
It's the journey, not the destination. And I think what I love about doing this work with you and being on this podcast is we have to find a way, I think. I love it that you said that. It's not about the destination. How do we find a way of living our lives in our own terms where we understand them? And to me, when I came up with that boat analogy years ago, after all the study of all the traditions that I did, I thought, this makes sense. Life is like being in a rocky boat in the middle of the ocean, not seeing any shore. And maybe sometimes the boat has a million holes in it and I'm just treading water. I'm just taking this pail and I'm constantly taking the water out of the boat so it doesn't sink. Yeah. That to me feels like how life can be sometimes. And when we're going through a major transition. So just thinking about that, and then all of a sudden, through the miraculous work of taking one step at a time, I'm not paling out. I'm not taking this bucket, I don't know why I say pail, bucket, trying to get all the water out of the boat because I'm kind of treading, I'm kind of doing good. I'm not only treading water, I'm going at good speed. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be treading water again at some point. I think having no expectations or judgments, but having a path that we're trying to lead, but not expecting that outcome to be exactly what we want it to be.
Yeah, that's a great visual for all of us, really. And I think regardless of whatever life change or transition you might be going through or struggling with, just keeping in mind that change is the constant. No feeling is ever final. And
you're not alone.
No one situation defines you. And so if you did lose a job, or if you did lose a loved one, or if you had to pick up and move cross country for your partner's work or whatever, it might be difficult, it might feel painful, it might be confusing, all of the feelings, but those feelings are not going to last forever. And they don't dictate your worthiness, the power of your presence, and that they don't name who you are, to use your words.
Yeah, stay the course and have the faith, even if the world around you is feeling very scary and anxious right now, which it absolutely is, I think, for most of us. It absolutely is just doing your one next thing and doing your one action that's in alignment with who you are. Yeah. That gives you the faith that your one thing, what is it, Jane Goodall, that says, it may seem too small to matter what you do, but it matters that you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you had given me a quote to close out this conversation that I think is
I think I kind of set you up really well.
You did.
I think this quote is perfect.
Yes. We must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us, from Joseph Campbell. And it's all about letting go of expectations, letting go of what we thought is in our own best interest, of what we thought our life was going to look like, and having that open mind, the optimism, the hope, the faith, no expectation, and being hopeful and curious of what could come in the next moment, the next day, the next month, because we just never know. And that is exciting to me.
It is exciting. And I use that chicken analogy. Maybe, I know we end with a quote. I use this chicken analogy. So an egg, you've got the egg and the chicken's inside of the egg. And when the chicken, hatches out and is born, what does the chicken say to its mommy? What next? What next? So if we could kind of be that curious and that elated,
like
as you can picture that little chicken coming out of the egg. What next, mommy? What next?
Be the baby chick.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom. Thanks for taking us through the 5 stages of grief and how that can really help us manage big life change and how we can come through feeling stronger and more connected. And I hope our listeners and our viewers really feel inspired and motivated by it. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're loving our episodes, make sure you're subscribed to Life Happens Podcast on YouTube. And if you're listening, make sure you're liked and subscribed on Apple, Spotify, and Google. If you haven't yet, give us a rating and a 5-star review. It's so helpful to us and to the show. If you haven't yet, you can subscribe to our Substacks via the links in our show notes. And it would mean so much to me if you pre-ordered my very first book, Dear Friend, out this November. You can check out more at thedearfriendbook.com.